Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is John Hayes. I'm an accountant executive here at Revelwood. I'm joined by my colleague Haley, who will be showing you today's overview demo of adaptive planning and here in a few moments. Now, I just want to take a few minutes to give you an idea of what to expect for today. All right, so firstly, a little bit of some background on Revelwood. We are a platinum business partner of Workday, and what that means is that we are a part of an extremely select group of partners that help you evaluate and implement adaptive planning. We have over 25 years of experience and are made up of a diverse team of certified, experienced consultants that bring decades of financial operations and systems know-how. We've implemented over 150 customers over the past few years, and this continues to grow. Not only that, but we've helped existing adaptive customers with model enhancements, integrations, support services, and of course, one-on-one training. Now, I'm aware some of you may be here just because you have an active initiative to get into a cloud FP&A solution, and some of you may be here just to learn, or you're just a little bit curious. Either way, we greatly appreciate you taking 15 minutes with us in the next few days, just to have a quick chat to see what your current challenges are, if you have any feedback or follow-up questions, and whether there's resources we can follow up with. An important thing to know is that the demo today is meant to just really give you a glimpse into what adaptive planning can do for the Office of Finance, and should be finished up in about 45 minutes. During that time, everyone will be on mute, but if you have a question, there is a Q&A button down at the bottom. Please enter it there and we will try to get to it. If not, we will absolutely make sure we get back to you via email to help you out. I want to take a moment to share a handful of logos we have personally worked with at Revelwood to help implement and ensure a successful onboarding experience in Workday Adaptive Planning. And the exciting thing here is you can see it's industry agnostic. So everyone has to plan, everyone has to budget, forecast, report, and we're helping all these clients today, and hopefully we can help you out too. So adaptive planning, if you don't know what it is, it's a place where you can do some modeling, reporting, analytics, all in one place. So everything that you need is in one solution. It'll act as your central source of the truth, if you will. So typically we're talking to finance teams, and of course, we're pulling in the general ledger data, but adaptive can connect really to any data source that you need to, because at the end of the day, data is data, and you're going to be able to bring all that data in together into one place to model and report on with confidence. And this slide right here gives you some of the areas of the business that you can model and plan using adaptive, as it is not limited to the core FP&A team. You can model out really any operational area of the business that you want with adaptive. Haley will ensure to dive into deeper into this on the demonstration today. However, feel free to ask in the Q&A any questions or topics you are interested in exploring, and we'll be able to schedule a tailored demonstration of our capabilities at a later date. Now, adaptive, you might ask what makes it a little bit different. So here it is. Adaptive runs on the Elastic Hypercube technology, which is a patented Workday technology, and this is a key competitive differentiator. There are a couple types of solutions in the market. The Excel add-in solution that we have all the same problems of Excel: too many members in a dimension, accounts, SKUs, job titles, employees, customers, you know it. This is all going to lock up Excel. And Excel can't calculate just what it needs. It has to calculate every single sheet and have it to save it all to disk. So if your Excel's locking up now, your Excel add-ins will lock up for all the same reasons. Then you have your traditional cube-based data systems. This image on the left is a graphical representation of the database. Traditional cube databases have to save every intersection of every dimension. So you see all that white space in there? It's all a bunch of zeros, but you must save that all to disk. And what that does, it takes up a ton of your time, and storage with other solutions is very expensive. So with Adaptive, our proprietary database does not only save all the valid intersections, it is also intelligent. So when you change something, it doesn't have to save all. Rather, it calculates only what it needs to, and that is why it's fast. Because of this technology, we'll have clients with over 200 dimensions hundreds of versions, and minimal impact on performance. But the reason it is key because it makes the solution scalable and have unlimited number of dimensions and unlimited number of versions and scenarios. And when your system needs more processing power, the system is intelligent and expands to give it to you. But what's equally important is that you have all this power without losing ease of use and maintainability. As you will see in the demo today, everything is extremely intuitive with drag and drop functionality, so that the end users can own the system without assistance from IT. And that is why Adaptive has almost 6,000 customers globally in all industries. This is way more than any of our competitors in the FP&A solution space. Here's a fun tidbit. Adaptive is north of 95% of a gross retention rate. This speaks to the value of what these customers are getting out of our Adaptive across all different types of industries, as you can see here. And this is growing rapidly. As you can see across, this has tons of industries here. Our commitment to innovation and customer success is recognized by the industry. It's a product that gets the highest user ratings and delivers business agility in times of change. And you can expect the software to be easy to use, implement, and maintain as your business scales. Being ranked #1 at ease of use, customer experience, satisfaction, usability, and best ROI, this should make you very excited to see Haley's demo now. No pressure, Haley.
Thanks, John. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Like John said, my name's Haley Elliott. I'm a pre-sales solutions consultant here at Revelwood. I've been working with Adaptive for about 3 years now, and actually spent the first half of that delivering Adaptive, so leading implementations. That really just means if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Don't be afraid to get technical. I'm happy to answer whatever. So what you're hopefully seeing on the screen now is our agenda for today. As John also said, it's going to be a pretty high level demonstration of Adaptive. I'm mainly going to be focusing on the financial use case, but just do know we do everything from FP&A to your workforce planning. We get into supply chain planning. So let's just open our minds a little bit. I'm not going to go too into those use cases though. So what's today going to look like? In the next 25 to 30 minutes or so, we are going to cover the basics. So we need to know how to navigate through the system, levels, versions, all that good stuff. From there, we'll move into active dashboards, where I'll touch on things like how to dig into your data, but most importantly, how Adaptive actually lets you incorporate dashboards and visuals directly into your planning process, which is pretty cool, I think. We'll move into financial statements with a focus on the P&L, but do know we typically build out a full 3 financial statement model, I guess 4 if you want a direct and an indirect cash flow. But I'm going to be focusing on one unless someone asks for the others. And then we'll finish up with a look at workforce planning, just one way to do it, individual based, although we can do role based as well if you have a temp workforce. And we'll finish up on reporting, so our other 2 types of reporting in Adaptive. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and take us into Adaptive. So a couple of things you're going to see on the screen right away. Obviously, I'm looking at a dashboard, but you can customize each and every user's view when they come into the system. So if I want to see a summary of company metrics, I can set it to a dashboard. If one of my end users just wants to go straight to a template they use a lot, or a standard kind of BVA report to look at budget versus actuals, how they're tracking against budget, you can absolutely set that for them. So we'll help you configure that, but it's pretty straightforward checkboxes and drop downs. So 2 things you're going to see on every screen are levels and versions. So we'll walk through both real quick. Levels are going to be your organizational structure. So think departments, cost centers, companies. If you're multinational or have a lot of subsidiaries, we'll bring those in. Anything along those lines. If you're more project or program oriented, you can bring those into your structure. Lots of variety. Just think of how you like to structure the backbone of your planning. A couple things on levels. This is the first line of security in Adaptive. So typically you're going to assign end users to either a single level or a group of levels that they're responsible for budgeting for, reviewing, that kind of thing. And then as you can see, all of that data on the dashboard just got filtered to Sales North, the department that I, as an end user, is assigned to. This is really important for two different reasons, really. One is going to be just for security, like I mentioned, when you bring in personnel detail and things like that, you want to make sure that people aren't seeing other departments' employees, their salaries, anything that's not really their business. And then part two to that is just ease of use. So in Excel, you're probably digging through 20 different templates to find your department. But right now you can actually, with the level structure, create one template, and those levels will filter that template depending on who is looking at it. Super easy to change the structure. I personally had one of my clients go public during implementation, large brokerage, and they completely reorganized their structure themselves. So lots of flexibility in the system, which is really great for scalability, especially if you're a small business planning to grow. So that's enough on levels. Versions are unlimited and adaptive. So you can do as many iterations of your budget as you want. You can have your rolling forecast, your 3+9s, your 6+6s, and have a dozen versions of each if you'd like to. Scenario analysis here, really whatever you want to track in versions. One thing that you'll notice is this little lock icon. That means it is a locked version, which just really means that end users can't make changes to the data in that version anymore. So think a board approved budget that you don't want people to go into and change, but you don't necessarily want to have to lock with a password, because that's difficult to keep track of. But you still want people to be able to look at it, pull it in the report, compare different iterations of the budget, that kind of thing. So again, like I mentioned, you can load as much data as you want. We have clients with several terabytes of data in the system. It does not impact your subscription. Our subscription is not based on the amounts of data you load. So as you grow, you're not going to face additional charges as your database also grows. So that is versions, and those are kind of the main two basics in adaptive. So with that, I'm going to dive into dashboards. We'll talk about integration after this, so don't worry, I will explain where all this data is coming from. But we're going to start with what's happening on the screen right now. So dashboards in adaptive are called active dashboards for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that you can always click into the dials, like the KPIs, the charts, anything along those lines, and have two different options to figure out what is going on with that data. So for example, revenue, I can explore data. And this will open up a cell explorer that gives me a bunch of information about my levels, what currency that level is in. If you are multi-currency, Adaptive does have native capabilities to handle foreign exchange for you, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. We can do the whole CTA thing, make your balance sheet balance, all the nice things that are kind of hard in Excel. This is also going to tell you things like dimensionality, if there is anything associated with it. But most importantly, it's going to give you access to an audit trail. So every data point in Adaptive has an audit trail attached to it. So you can see who's been making changes, what changes they've made, and what the old data was in that place. And you can either do that account by account or pull a report for the entire system. Other option here is to drill directly back to the planning model that's generating that number. So this is really important to look at because it's just proving the point that your models are on the exact same database as your visualizations and reports. So you know that anytime I make changes to my, let's say, product revenue model, or if you have a different revenue stream, your SaaS revenue model, anything like that, as soon as I make a change on this sheet, it is directly linked to my visual. So we'll actually see that auto refresh later when I do start making changes. The other option here was just a dimensional drill down. So these are automatically generated for you. You don't have to code them in. I know with other solutions, you do have to decide how you want to break your data down during implementation. Here, if I add a new dimension, which is just a plus button in model management, same platform, it'll show up in this list. So I can do things like look at what industries I'm selling to. Maybe I want to see what products that industry is interested in, look at my customers, so on and so forth. And then you always have that option to explore data. So a bunch of different ways to figure out what's going on. So the last reason these are called active is that you can bring your planning models directly onto these dashboards. So this is important because sometimes people don't plan super well when they just look at a spreadsheet. For some of us, seeing just this sheet isolated, it doesn't really mean that much. So what you can actually do is use dashboards to set up step-by-step tabs with these planning models on them next to any kind of visualizations that could help better inform me of where I should be going with my budget. So we'll take a look at why this is active. I'm going to pretend like I'm the Sales North manager, and we're actually going to make a change to my forecast. Let's say for a specific customer, I want to know what would happen if we actually sell 15% more to this customer than we're currently contracted to. Maybe we convince them to up their contract a little bit, give them a discount, something like that. You saw I just made that adjustment real quick for the rest of the year, saved, and you're going to see a little ... refresh over all of these dials. That was part of products group A. So we saw that moved from 62 to 63% of our total sales, so on and so forth. So again, you can think of this as, yes, your BI kind of needs on the analytics side of the house, any sort of scenario analysis, but it really is super helpful to our clients when they can set up a visual component like this to their budgeting process. Last two things on dashboards. You can, so they are not any coding to build them. It's all drag and drop. So you're not going to have to learn Python or MDX or all of those lovely languages that no finance person wants to learn. You're going to have the option to select from a pretty substantial library of different charts and graphs. Drag one on, and Adaptive is really just going to ask you to tell it what data you want to display. So you will have access to all of your GL accounts, and that's where I'll go next about how we get this data in. But you'll also have access to any other data point we've loaded into the system. So again, think not just financial data, but any sort of operational metrics, sales metrics, workforce, your employee roster, tax rates, whatever is going to be useful for you to display on your dashboard. You can control who can edit, who just looks at the dashboards, all that good stuff. And then you can also schedule these dashboards to be sent out to an individual or group of individuals on an automated cadence as well. So your CFO likes this type of view maybe in his inbox every Monday. You can just set up a schedule and it'll go ahead and send this snapshot out to that individual. So that's dashboards in a nutshell. Just to give you a picture, you can literally make as many of these as you want. People can have individual ones. Some different teams might have different dashboards for themselves. It's really whatever you would like. With that, I'm going to move on from dashboards and just quickly talk about navigation. So one thing to note right away is I'm in an admin account. So a lot of these functions that we're seeing here and a lot of the sheets and dashboards would be hidden from our end users. So you're not going to overwhelm them with everything that's available in the system. I'm just an admin, so I can see everything. So we will be walking through most of these options. So just a few that we won't go too in depth into. We do have a consolidations module available. So if your ERP doesn't offer intercompany eliminations and you need them, we can handle that need for you. We also have processes and workflow tracking that we can configure for your end users. But where I want to really dig in a little bit are these last two options. So how do we get data in and what happens when I'm not sure what to do? So a couple of different ways to get your base data into the system before you start the actual budgeting process. The first is right here, my automated integration. So with automated integration, we have a native, what we call ETL platform That really just means that we connect direct to data sources. We don't need a third party. Any transformations you need, we will do directly in design integrations. We are data agnostic, so we can connect to any ERP. If you're in manufacturing or distribution, your 3PLs, we can connect to HR systems, CRMs, really anywhere that you have data that you want to report on or that informs your budget. So how this works is we'll set up tasks that will automatically load whatever data set you want on whatever cadence you'd like. So nightly, every 15 minutes, you can change that schedule. So month end, you probably want your actuals in a little more often. Since it's changing, you're closing out the month. But after that, you might say, hey, you know, every night's fine. Takes maybe a minute or two to run. And you always have the option to go into these tasks and just click a run button if you want to run your actuals in ad hoc. The other option here is a manual data import. This will be for things that you don't necessarily need to update every single day or multiple times a day. So think your employee roster that probably doesn't change a lot and you just want to refresh it every month. Then you do have the option to just upload an Excel file. Adaptive will give you a template like it did right up here. Copy paste your data, import, maybe takes 30 seconds to pop it into one of your templates in Adaptive. So those are just two ways to get data in. I'll talk about manual entry in a few minutes when we go to the P&L. But the last point in navigation is just going to be support. So you have a bunch of options for support in Adaptive. One of them is 24/7, 365 access to the Workday support team. This is included in every single subscription. It is not an extra charge. You can pick up the phone, you can submit a ticket. You determine how critical your request is, and they have pretty quick SLAs as well. The other option, if you don't want to have to talk to anybody, is just to click the question mark up here, and this is a context-dependent knowledge base that'll just tell me, hey, I'm trying to import something. Here are a bunch of articles on how to actually import, how to get my template, that kind of thing. So it's like a nice little on-demand IT person that actually speaks plain English. Cool. So let's go ahead and talk some of our sheets. So sheets are our planning templates. Assumptions are where we house global drivers. So both pretty closely related. One thing to note here, like I mentioned, I'm in an admin view. I'm also in a demo instance. So I have a ton of sheets. You're probably not going to have this many, and you can hide them from different users. So you will not have to scroll as much as me. But I'm going to go ahead and go into the P&L, and we'll talk financial statements and the actual budgeting that'll happen in the system. So this is my P&L. Obviously, we'll load in your chart of accounts, so don't worry if you don't recognize these. We will load yours in. And I'm also on Sales North. So one thing to note is that data aggregation happens automatically in Adaptive. You don't have to run a business process. You don't have to close out all your templates. You can have 900 people in here at once in the same sheet if you like making changes, and they're not going to kick each other out every time they save. So in terms of what's happening on the screen here, you'll see green numbers and black numbers. Green numbers are my actuals coming in from my ERP. So think NetSuite, Intact, or SAP, Infor, or any other random system that you may have, that will come in here. And then black numbers are that budget data, which are coming from calculations, manually entered, or some sort of supporting schedule. So we'll take a look at a supporting schedule. The other two things you'll notice are red carrots and blue carrots. So these little red carrots are one highlight of collaboration in Adaptive. You can right click on any cell as you're going through a budget, add a note, and that note will actually flow through to any reports that you pull. So nice way to just be able to review everyone's changes or comments at once. The blue carrots indicate that it's a calculated field. So calculations in Adaptive are pretty similar to Excel. You'll see a pretty simple one up here. Syntax is almost the same. The main difference is that instead of using cell references, so C2 times B4000, which means nothing when you look at it, we use account names. You get to name your accounts whatever you want, so whatever is going to be easiest for you to read. And this is going to actually tell me just I'm taking my FTE account from my personnel model and multiplying it by a telephone per head assumption or global driver that I'm maintaining in an assumption sheet. So I like to use the kind of comparison that you can think of this like named ranges in Excel. It's just going to be a lot more informative than the cell references. Also, I do know that that's a very simple formula. If you can do it in Excel logic-wise, you can do it in Adaptive. We have the same if statements and maxes and mins and all that good stuff. If you're ever confused and need to write a formula, there's a nice little formula assistant that'll help you with any syntax questions you might have. But it's not coding, pretty light learning curve there. While I'm on kind of the Excel functionality and comfort piece, we do maintain a lot of the same shortcuts as well. So this is going to help with some of that change management. If you do have a lot of people who are used to spreadsheets and are diehard no mouse fans, they'll still be able to keep that when they move into Adaptive. But let's talk data. So one other way that you can kind of key in data into the system is just like you would any other spreadsheet for something like new hire training. Maybe I just know that my budget for the year is $16,000. A lot of times for expenses or operating expenses, we just have a set budget for the year. But what's cool in Adaptive is it has a bunch of built-in functionality to actually guess to actually calculate how you want to break this back in multiple different ways. So things like your different week cadences, custom assumptions, or the ability to break this back using last year's values. So think seasonality. Adaptive will track that for every single line item, both in your P&L and any other model. So really nice functionality, and you can see that that value is not broken back evenly. It's actually looking at these green numbers from either last year or earlier this year. So much more precise, but still pretty easy. And you don't have to do just even spread for everything. We do also have machine learning and artificial intelligence if anyone wants to go deeper into that. But just know that we do have functionality in that area. I know that's becoming increasingly important. But I am going to show one more detailed supporting schedule. So we always get the question of, cool, you can show a P&L, but I want more detail around my personnel, around what my prepaids are, where are my vendor contracts, that kind of thing. So to get to those supporting schedules, I'm just going to explore my salary and wages line. And this is going to take me to my workforce planning sheet. One thing before I do click into that is just if someone's exploring a cell that's personnel related, there's a checkbox on permissions for salary detail permissions. And if they don't have that, they won't see the bottom half here. So we do take security with personnel data very seriously in Adaptive. But I'm going to follow this through to my workforce planning model. So if you don't want to go through the P&L, of course, you can just go through sheets and find my workforce planning sheet. So a bunch of different options for you to navigate. But in terms of what we're now seeing on the screen, this is called a model sheet. Nomenclature doesn't really matter. It's just a sheet with a bunch of columns. You get to customize it however you like, drag on whatever columns you want. And yes, you can change it years after we've implemented. So I've had clients who suddenly introduce projects into their personnel planning. They want to allocate people across projects. They'll just drag that onto their model and be able to budget moving forward at that level. So speaking of allocations, you'll see Will actually has 2 lines, and he's being allocated 60-40 across 2 different departments. It doesn't even just have to be one intersection you're allocating across. It could be departments and projects, just projects, whatever you want. And this is just going to automatically split Will's employee burden across those 2 departments when this is linked into the P&L. So everything's still connected. couple of things you'll notice are a lot of these are drop downs, and that's just referring to those assumption sheets. So I have my tax rates in there, I have state specific taxes. Again, if you're multinational, we can handle multiple jurisdictions for your taxes, that kind of thing. So we can talk through that. Logic for unions, payroll accrual or PTO accruals, whatever you want to track for your personnel. All of those calculations are going to happen in the back end. So right click on a row and you're going to see all the calculations I have for my personnel model. We decide with you what you want back here. So if you don't see a calculation, you see too many, we will decide what you need and put that logic in and train you on how to put more in. So one thing that I do want to call out though is you'll notice 2 of Melanie's lines, so 2 of her taxes cut off in May, that's the last month, and then resume the next fiscal year. So you can get pretty exact with your planning process just by telling Adaptive what's your minimum and maximum, and you can see that happening in a couple of places here. One side note is I did just say fiscal year. If you're not on a January through December, that's completely fine. We work with a lot of software companies that are February through January. Whatever your fiscal year calendar is, we can handle it, and we can also go all the way down to planning by day. I'm just in a monthly instance. The last thing I'll say on personnel is that once you import base data like this, whether it's your personnel roster or your opportunities from Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever system you use to track that, you can make changes. So I can say, let's see what happens if I hire someone new. I want to replicate these 3 positions. I'll go ahead and do that. I want to see what happens if we actually hire this individual, Richard Grayson, about a month later, that kind of thing. So lots of flexibility around scenarios. If you want to get into capacity planning, we can move in that direction. And again, we can do role-based planning too. So it's a very quick overview of workforce planning. This is definitely one of the more detailed areas that I would recommend we follow up on if you have any questions. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move into the rest of our reporting options. So the first one we're going to cover is our ad hoc reports. This is going to be anything that you just want to be able to spin up in a minute or two, a little less formatted, think budget versus actuals, things you want to actively use in the budget process to monitor how you're tracking against either last year's budget, last year's actuals, anything along those lines. So let's talk functionality, and then I will go into a couple of different reports. Things you're going to notice right away is footnotes. These are all of those red carrots we saw on the P&L. So notes are going to aggregate at the bottom, on the side, inline, personal preference. You can also hide them. Speaking of notes, you can also make notes directly on the report. So a lot of times people will put this report as a final step in a workflow so that people can, or budget owners can come in and see, hey, there's a really high variance here, but I actually need that extra budget. I'm going to add a line note to explain why, or just comments on the entire report. So a lot of opportunity to add a narrative to your budget. You are also able to drill into any numbers even on this report. So I see a crazy variance, I want to drill into actuals, and I don't have to go back into my ERP. I can just go ahead and drill into a transactions table, which will show me all the way down to transactional detail. You can add whatever columns you'd like here, your vendors, invoice IDs, links to invoices. But this is just nice so that you don't have to sign into another system or bother accounting and wait for a response about why your actuals were so high. The one other thing that you can do on this report is click on any account, and this will give you an option to pivot this entire report by any dimension in the system. I have a lot. You don't have to have this many, whatever is most useful to you. But I'm going to pivot this report by function. And you'll just see Adaptive in literally a second, took that salary and wages account and broke it down by different buckets of my department. So an alternate hierarchy, we can handle those quite easily through attributes. I'm now looking at that account by S&M, R&D, G&A. Last couple things on these reports. You can download them as Excel and PDF, but you do get up to 1,000 view-only users who can come in and look at reports, drill down, all that good stuff with your subscription. So you really don't have to do that. And then building these out is all drag and drop as well, no coding. You have access to all of your accounts and dimensions in the system. So if I wanted to add a non-financial account for some reason, let's say FTE, just drag it on. Even the conditional formatting we saw is really simple. It's just adding a new rule and telling Adaptive what the criteria is. So absolutely no coding. It's really nice. And this is just another example of a report that CFOs really like. Being able to see last year's actual 2 versions of my budget for this year, for my income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, and a bunch of financial metrics. So I like to show this just so you can see that you're not restricted to only having financial data on these reports. So you can start reporting on financial metrics, operational metrics, anything that you want to actually put onto a report. Okay. So that's web reporting. The last type of reporting I'm going to cover in Adaptive is actually one of our most popular features that also comes with your subscription. It's called Office Connect. So Office Connect is a plugin that's going to connect Adaptive and all of your data in there to Microsoft Office, Word, and PowerPoint. And the main purpose of this is to automate any of the more formatted presentations that you need to do on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, a weekly basis. Think your board reports, your investor reports, that kind of thing. So let's talk through functionality. If I highlight linked cells, you'll see blue cells and green cells. Blue cells are linked directly to Adaptive, so I can explore cell even from Excel, and this will open up a cell explorer. So my security permissions still flow through to Office Connect. If I don't have permission to drill to this level of detail, it's not going to let me. The green labels are just dynamic time labels, so they'll update as I refresh this report. Something that's really cool about Office Connect is you don't need to rebuild all of the pretty reports that you might already have in Google Sheets or Excel. We can just go ahead and click and drag your adaptive elements, which you'll see over here, pretty much the same list as the web reports. Just go ahead and click and drag it over to your existing report. So let's say I want to finish filling out my OpEx. Go ahead and move that over. And you'll see all those cells highlight blue. That just means it's now connected to Adaptive. So only other step is to refresh, but while we're at it, I'm gonna go ahead and grab April's report instead of March. To do that, you're just gonna go to Workbook Properties, and instead of spending a day or a week doing this, I'm just gonna change the date. Okay, refresh. You're gonna see all of those time labels update. So I'm now looking at a trailing 6 from April, past year actuals year to date, this year's actuals year to date, whatever you want to see. And all of these line items are now populated. I also still have my Excel formatting capabilities, so a lot more flexibility around formatting with Office Connect. You still have ad hoc functionality if I want to expand some line items and see detail. My new GL accounts will show up under here automatically, so you don't have to worry about that embarrassing moment when you're talking to your CFO and you forgot to add an account. And then if you want something like this for all of your cost centers, departments, whatever structural elements you have in Adaptive, you can just come up into repeating reports, tell Office Connect how you want to split this report out. And I'm just going to pick 3 of my departments. What you're going to see at the bottom are 3 new tabs. And Adaptive is auto splitting my data out. So any data I do have in my demo instance for sales east, south, north, and my total company. So that happened automatically. Could have done it based on a dimension, anything like that. And then, like I mentioned, this does work for all of your PowerPoint decks and any Word reports you might need to produce as well. But That's going to be Office Connect. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to John to take us home.
All right, nice job, Haley. Hopefully everyone saw how powerful, flexible, and especially how easy Adaptive is to use with a simple drag and drop functionality. If you need more, we have plenty of resources we can make available to you, such as one-on-one demonstrations that speaks to more to your needs. We can offer up our ROI sessions to help quantify the value of this investment, hands-on workshops, and even get your hands on a trial too. Just let us know what makes sense for you when we connect in our follow-up meeting, or reach out to us directly. We're happy to help you. We encourage you to learn more about Revelwood and our implementation approach by visiting our website at revelwood.com. While you are there, we encourage you to visit our Knowledge Center, where we offer tips and tricks about all our aspects of our planning process, technical tips on the tool, planning tips about the budgeting process, and various tips on other business aspects for your FP&A model. So if there are any final questions, please let us know. But outside that, thank you for attending. And one of my colleagues will be reaching out for a 15-minute follow-up call. Hopefully you can make that time to share your feedback and let us know how we can help. If there's an alternative time that you need better, just let them know and we'll set it up. And everyone have a great rest of the day.